Hey Jack, why is blue milk so popular on Bat 2?
No idea.
Because it's legend dairy.
That is the worst one. That is terrible. That is terrible.
License testing. Roger, roger.
Jedi.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
Always a pleasure to meet a Jedi.
And my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy!
You failed, Your Highness. I'm a Jedi.
Hello, explorers. I'm Jack. Welcome to episode 150. And as always, thank you very much for joining us. Now, if you like what you hear, please leave us a rating on your podcast provider of choice. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're joining us via YouTube.
Yes, and as always, welcome back or welcome if this is your first time joining. I'm Jimmy, and we are missing Charlie this week. Well, we are missing Charlie this week. But we do have a special guest coming up here in a little bit.
We do. How's your week been, Jimmy?
Well, I'll be honest with you, man. I had the ultimate end of the summer weekend. My sister flew out, and we did Superman for the second time. I did Superman for the second time, first time for them. And then we drove up to Kansas City. We went to Boulevard Brewery, and we did a tour, and they matched up food and snacks with it. It was incredible. And then we saw Mumford & Sons, and the Ted Lasso crew came out like we predicted. And then the next night we went and we saw Old Dominion, and they were amazing. One of Molly and I's favorite bands. And then when we got back, I went and I saw Fantastic Four. So I've had a heck of a week. I am a little bit, now I'm coming down off that because school starts on kind of like Wednesday, Thursday time period for me. So other than that, pretty good way to end the summer. How about you? How are things up north?
Yeah, this week was very good. The weather has been absolutely amazing during the day, and we've had storms during the night, and we've had like a stampede down in the local town of Medicine Hat, like a rodeo, which was amazing, with lots of, let's say, Star Wars Force encounters happening there. Before we jump over to this week's Force encounters, last week I asked everybody what species Admiral Trench was, and the correct answer was Hawk. So if you mentioned that answer, congratulations to you. This week's question is nice and easy because I've had a few complaints about last week's question being quite tough. Who was it that killed Savage, Darth Maul's brother? Who was it who killed Savage? If you think you know, DM us the answer, and your name will be added to the Jedi Archives of Glory. Now, let's head over to this week's Force encounter.
For my ally is the Force.
All right. So I got to do something kind of cool. Like I said, our weekend, we were in Kansas City we were in between Kansas City and Lawrence, and we stayed in Lawrence at a really cool Airbnb. And one of the days we got to walk around, and I got to go to 1313 Mockingbird Lane Toy Store.
Nice.
And I had seen this pop up on our feed. I knew about it. I just have never made it up there all the time, but it's always for sports. I never have a chance to do anything fun like that. So if you are in or around this place is a trip, man. It has, and I know I've posted a couple photos, and they're just little things. They have so much Star Wars stuff, but they have every genre of they have horror, they have DC, they have Marvel, they had Turtles, they had G.I. Joe. This guy is a collector. I believe his name was Terry. He was super friendly, so nice. It was awesome. And we're trying to hook up and go back and chat with him sometime about his store. And he also has a massive online. He told me all of his expensive stuff's in a warehouse online to be sold. So if you just check out 1313 Mockingbird Lane, Toys and Collectibles, I believe it's called. And if you're ever in Lawrence, Kansas, and you're any kind of collector, you have to just take an hour, go in there, and I was amazed. I'm not a horror guy, but some of the stuff that he had, one guy comes in and is like, "Hey, do you have any Leatherface stuff?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I have this board game about Texas Chainsaw Massacre." So I was like, "What?" And so, just some crazy collectibles, some stuff from back in the day. It was pretty cool. I didn't buy anything this time but I have plans to go back. So, how
Nice.
about
Awesome.
you?
Yeah, so this week, like I mentioned, I went down to a rodeo and there was a fairground ride. Basically, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's like the Alien Explosion or something like that. Anyway, long story short is they had loads of vinyl stuff inside. So I got talking to one of the operators about Star Wars, and lo and behold, he was a massive Star Wars fan, telling me all about his collection, etc.
Oh,
He's
nice.
now added himself straight onto the group, so we're going to start seeing a lot
Yeah.
more with him as well. And yeah, it's just really caught me by surprise because I'm still yet to really find a Star Wars shop, so to speak. I did speak about Cardboard Casket, the TCG shop I go to here, having the odd few things. But yes, I'm on the prowl for that, that one Star Wars go-to shop at the local town. But speaking of the one-stop place to be, this weekend there's lots of news coming out of Batu.
The people in this crowd will soon be among almost 40,000.
For those who are among the 900 with news media or promotional tickets, the sneak preview probably will be the only chance to see the Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, a lot of information. I know we talked about this a while ago about how we were kind of like bummed that like there wasn't going to be a lot of Star Wars at
Yeah.
oh yeah, they're not going to be there. Yeah, they were, and I was actually watching George Lucas's
Panel.
presentation. Yeah. So anyway, so we got more comics and book goodness. Like I love this stuff coming our way. So we had a ton of things, and then we know that a lot of our friends and authors and the voice of Star Wars is out there. So first off, we had a brand new Bad Batch series was revealed. There was an announcement, revival of the Mandalorian visual guide, which was canceled back in 2021. So that's back up. From Random House Worlds, they announced 3 new novels, including the titles of the final 2 chapters of Reign of the Empire trilogy and a Star Wars Outlaws novel. Not sure about that one. We'll see. That's not all. They also had a graphic novel about General Grievous. And if this is his backstory, dude, sign me up.
I can't wait for this. I cannot wait for it.
I've been wanting this story forever.
Yes.
I know I think there's legend stuff, but oh man, this will be sweet. In a graphic novel, like that's, if we can't get it animation or live action, I want a graphic novel of it. Dark Horse showed off their Tales from the Nightlands. It's a 3-series run. I believe it's happening on Ryloth. It's about like the boogeyman on their place. Kavan Scott is writing that. We've got Burry Aga joining up with Young Jedi Adventures. And then we have Legacy of Vader. Writer Charles Soule says Luke Skywalker is due to make an appearance in the series, and we could have Kylo Ren facing off with his former master and grandfather. So that would be that'd be pretty sick. We will let you know when those come out. There's tons of books and things we've got. When this comes out, Tessa Gratton's The Crystal Crown, Jackie and Yord's coming out. We have Bad Batch book coming out in like a week or 2 after that. Lots of comics. So yeah, check that out. Also, if you like comics, I'm still reviewing. I've got 1 minute left of number 5 to finish up. And that'll be coming out. And then we're going to try to start doing the Marvel main series run. So check those out on YouTube as well. Quick 5-minute videos.
Make sure you do check those out. Also, lots of big news, reference collectors. But the biggest one for that is a Clone Wars gunship, and it's a whole ton bigger than its predecessor. It's huge. But the Kickstarter is at $500, I think, give or take. Personally, I think it's crazy money. But I know collectors will buy it. That's their passion. That's fine. But this leaves me with this question now, and I think it's a big one. $500 for a Clone Wars gunship. Are we steering away from kids with toys, and are they sort of heading towards the collectors for, let's say, money? It's a business. I get it. I totally get it. But come on.
Yeah, I think that's sometimes where people get frustrated when everyone goes to Star Wars is for kids. Yeah, but kids aren't buying the stuff that we're buying.
Yeah.
When you think about the last 3 things, you had the Cantina set that just came out, right?
Ghost,
and then you had the Ghost.
Yeah.
You have this. Like, they were like $300. I think there was a Razor Crest that came out before that, and they're beautiful and they're awesome. And I'm like, but where do you put this stuff?
It's too big.
Like, I have a pretty cool, diverse collection, and it's a mess. But like, I would, if I could afford it and money wasn't yeah, I'd buy it. But I mean, is this going to sit in a box? Like, I don't know, like how you show this. I know there's some cool, like I think some of the Jedi Masters are like some of the levels if it gets. It looks beautiful. I will not say anything negative about how it looks. The clone troopers look great. I'm sure if you're a huge Clone Wars guy or
this is a piece
girl,
for you. Yeah.
you're gonna want to get this thing. $500 roughly. But yeah, I think you're right, Jack. Though I don't think. I mean, I guess it's smart. You have these high end toys, collectibles, and of course you sell stuff that's a little bit cheaper. But yeah, you can't say Star Wars is for kids and then you're gearing it towards adults. I mean, because what kid? I don't even know what kid wants this. To be honest, I don't know. Do kids play with toys like this anymore?
No,
Everything's online. Lab.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I think what you said as well is for such a big piece, you've got to. But personally, I'd want it on the display.
Yeah,
Like you've got to the size of it, the price of it.
$500.
Where do you put it? I don't know. I'd have loved to have got the Ghost ship again. The size. I thought the price for the Razor Crest was decent. I think it was like $300 or $350. The cantina was brilliant. The sail barge was brilliant. But yeah, things of those magnitude, you definitely want to display them. I mean, look at the Lego Falcon, like the £800, £900 one.
Still sitting here in its box.
Yeah, what do you do?
No place to put it.
Exactly. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Maybe a topic for another time.
Yeah, for sure. Next up, we got some big reveals. Our first glimpse of Darth Maul. I guess it would just be Maul at this point, right? And Ezra in Ahsoka season 2. I mean, did they just? I mean, he looks exactly like the character.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
I was a little worried that they were going to shave his head, like towards the end of Rebels when Ezra. They're trying to make him look older, so he shaves his head and he's doing all that stuff. But that photo of Iman as Fondi as Ezra is nuts. Like I thought it was like someone had doctored his photo or something.
Yeah,
and it's really him. His hair looks. I mean, it's
perfect.
Yeah, it's like he's using the Force to make his hair flow. But no, he looks phenomenal. I can't wait for the second season, especially like these characters. The more time we spend with them, the more time they become those rebel characters that we love and know.
Yeah,
the process takes a while, but if they look exactly like the character, it won't take that long to fall in love with them.
It always helps, doesn't it? Like you said, if they look like you've imagined or like there are in the animation, again, animation, they've done so well. And look how clean shaven he is. He's clearly had a shower and whatnot whilst he's been back with the Rebel Alliance, if you like.
Yeah. And then the Maul, I think it was only a screenshot of Maul, but that looked crisp. That looked clean. And you got to be excited for more Maul stuff.
I cannot wait to see Darth Maul back in action. I think we're going to see a lot more action from Darth Maul as well.
Yeah, this is going to be his show. It's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely huge. And lastly, what we're going to be talking about shortly is more reveals from San Diego Comic-Con. Again, lots of collector stuff coming out the woodworks there. Black Series knocking it out the park as always. Anakin vs. Obi-Wan from the Revenge of the Sith. I know this is a highly sought piece. My boy Mace Windu against Chancellor Palpatine. Again, I'd love to have gotten that.
Ooh.
Next one's a personal favourite. So the duel with Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker from Empire Strikes Back. Now, I've seen a snippet where you can see Luke's hand like flying off in the distance. I think that's absolutely hilarious. Nice little nod to the film there. Next up, you've got the Anakin and Rex figure as well. Again, you've got the bounty hunters, so you can build your criminals, Jango Fett and Asajj Ventress. You've also got the Stranger, looking really, really awesome as always, with, I believe, a removable helmet. And then the Vintage Collection knocking it out the park with Chewbacca and Han Solo. And then obviously you've got the Ghost set, the special action figure set from Return of the Jedi. Now, what I will bring up real quickly, though, is a nice little touch to the Anakin Skywalker Jedi spirit. You've got the spirit from, let's say, the original era, but then also the nod towards the prequel era. Which
is that like an extra head? Like you could switch out the head, or is that?
I think that's amazing. I think that's
stand. Yeah,
cool.
So
that's a great little respectful nod to all fans from all eras. So yeah, really like that. Next up, obviously, you've got again another shock trooper. Going further down, this is the Clone Wars gunship. If you're watching on YouTube, again, super big and expensive, a lot of money. Where'd you put something like that, really? Next up, what we've got as well is more collectibles. I believe it was Ezra Bridges' lightsaber. That's also coming to the Disney store. And there's one more thing. Oh, yes. Black Series are now doing some more helmets. I think the next one is going to be the Death Trooper helmet off the top of my head. I think that is getting its release date. So there is lots of collectibles coming from San Diego Comic-Con. And like Jimmy mentioned, the panel, George Lucas' panel. What's your first thoughts on that, Jimmy? Did you manage to watch it all?
I haven't got to watch it all yet. I mean, I was kind of like, it was an interesting group of people. Queen Latifah, George Lucas, Guillermo del Toro, and then Doug Chang. I'm just like, how do these people all fit together? Apparently, Guillermo is on the board of directors. Queen Latifah is a lifelong friend of George Lucas, which I'm like, okay, that's a neat. I want to hear that story, like how they, I mean, just from the worlds that they came up in. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. Just curious how that friendship got started. But yeah, I'm excited to watch that probably after we're done recording today.
Yeah.
I do know that they blacked out the snippet they had. That's frustrating.
Really?
So I'm kind of like, well, is there any point now? I've just listened to the maker talk, and
Yeah.
but it's after 50 years. It's his first time at San Diego Comic-Con ever, so that's pretty historic. As far as, I mean, he's the reason for most of everything that we do, and a lot of the things that happen at San Diego Comic-Con, he's responsible for. So,
Hell, the maker.
It's crazy that it's taken this long to get him there.
That's a really good point as well. And if you do get a chance to see it, we've got a little snippet on our Instagram page of him coming out. The guy doesn't age. He looks so well.
Yeah, man.
Long may it continue.
It's got to be using the dark side of the force or something.
Something's not right there.
Pulling the life force out of other people.
Yes, and speaking of life force being depleted from people, let's head over to this week's main show.
Well, that was a segue right there.
That's a brilliant segue.
It's just a simple jump to hyperspace and we're there. What's so tricky about that?
Plenty. Can't plot a direct course to Kessel. You might want to buckle up, baby.
Okay, so now joining us on today's show is a special guest and friend to help us with our grief on this episode, and more so Jimmy if and when Jekko gets mentioned. It's Pastor Lito.
Hey everybody, I'm back.
He's back. Welcome to the show. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. For those guys and girls that don't know who you are, let them know a little bit of something about yourself, Pastor.
Yeah, big Star Wars fan, out originally from California, was able to win a couple Star Wars contests as the ultimate Star Wars fan of eBay 2011, and then some other contests in 2005 where I went to the world premiere of Revenge of the Sith. And now I serve as a pastor in the Midwest, in Kansas, Wichita. Love it out here. Still miss some of those fun, late night movie adventures in the West Coast where they would have just, Grauman's Chinese Theater and everything going crazy for all things Star Wars. But we try to have the fun here. We've got plenty of movie theaters to choose from. And apparently the IMAX theater in Wichita was the largest IMAX theater for like 10 years running. But I think that was 20 years ago.
Nice. So this week we lost some iconic people, and that got me thinking about how death from Star Wars has impacted me. And as always, I asked you, the explorers, what deaths in Star Wars has impacted you the most?
Yeah, we had lots and lots of people chime in on different social medias, Facebook, Instagram, on our Discord. And so just want to say thank you to everybody that reached out. All right, the first one, Nerdy Brett, and a big shout out going out to his cosplay at San Diego Comic-Con, where he dressed up as Kanan, and then his choice is Kanan. So that's going to be a tough one. I think you'll probably hear more about Kanan in our comments and probably from a few of us. So what do you got, Jack?
Yeah, over on Facebook, Des Smith also went with Kanan, mentioned the writing and execution being top notch, whereas Joe mentioned Yoda was a big one for her until the Rogue One beach scene, which hit her the most as well.
Sean Hudson also went with Kanan over on Instagram. Cardboard Cutout Cosplays mentioned the deaths of Luke, Han, and Leia as they were his childhood heroes.
Yeah, so they're just a few of the deaths that we've had on screen, and I totally agree. There's been some really emotional deaths. So what we are going to do, and the reason we brought Pastor Lito in, is because we're going to go through our top 3 deaths in Star Wars and the impact it's had on us and why.
Yeah, man, there's so many to choose from. So you said top 3. I thought I wrote down top 5. So maybe I just got ahead of
3 or
myself.
5. We'll see what we get to.
Yeah. So I think Andor and Jyn Erso is my number 3, man. Like, and I'm somebody in ministry. I'm around death all the time. I had a funeral yesterday for a lady that was 96 years young, been at this church longer than I've been alive. So I kind of have a unique view on death. I'm around it a lot, and I'm not afraid of it. Or if it comes, it comes. But it has a huge emotional impact on us, and I kind of have to put Jyn Erso and Andor together because their final demise right there with the explosion kind of sets us off for a huge story in the Star Wars mythos. And for me, it was that self-sacrifice. They knew they were going into that mission where they were pretty confident they were going to come out alive, but they saw the greater picture. And I think in all of the Star Wars films, since we deal with so much of Jedis and smugglers, even though Han Solo's a smuggler, he's a really lucky smuggler, and he gets out of a lot of situations, obviously, before his own demise. But I think about that experience of them passing. They were accepting of it. They were in that moment where, like, hey, this is our fate. We did exactly what we need to, or at least they hoped, because they still probably wondered, did the transmission finish? Is Darth Vader getting them up there? Or did their ship explode? And they just have to sit there in that moment of hope and thinking, hey, we did what we need to do. Now we're going to go. And I just think that's kind of poetic. I think everybody wants to know that they accomplished what they needed to. And I think about it in real life. They were just regular people in theory. Although now that we've seen Andor seasons 1 and 2, Andor's pretty darn lucky a few times. He's got that smuggler luck. So, but I'll start with you there.
That's a really good starting point to go with. Did watching Andor season 1 and 2 make those deaths a bit more impactful for you?
100%. Yeah. I think right after I finished season 1, I went and watched Rogue One again. And then when I finished season 2, I watched Rogue One again because I was just like, this just changes. And we don't have a lot of films. I mean, obviously the prequels did that, but except we have like mostly new actors in prequels, obviously Palpatine. But when it comes to Andor, you get to see some of the people that you encounter through Rogue One, and being able to see that kind of get fleshed out, I think was just so more impactful. And, I go back to, I'm going to go cross-reference another series, Back to the Future. The whole reason that Back to the Future was written, Bob Gale thought, man, what would have been like to have gone to school with my parents? That's where the initial thought of Back to the Future came. And then he created with what happens if I could go back in time as a teenager, would I be friends with my parents? And I think when it comes to these characters like Andor, what would have been like to watch them become a part of the rebellion? You see Andor go from, he's very diehard on the mission, even if he's a little rebellious within the rebellion at times, and yet he's so devoted to the cause. And then we get to see the why. I think we as humans, we kind of want to know the whys of our parents, of our siblings, older siblings. How did they become how is it that like 4 people I have 4 kids, so I'm using this as an example. How can 4 people be born and raised in the same home and go off to complete different trajectories in life? And I think Star Wars is a lot of that too. I think George Lucas had been recorded an interview as saying, like, this is a story of fathers and children, and it is, so being able to see the multi-generation of what Star Wars has become is kind of a beautiful thing.
Nice. Well, I'm going to start us off. For mine, it's going to be K2SO. So we're going away from the human side of life, the element, if you like. And I think it's the first time I've seen a droid die on screen that actually did make me feel a little bit of sad emotion, if you like, because K2SO, heroically holds off troopers, trying to allow Jin and Cassian to complete their mission. And ultimately, in that series, he becomes one of the most beloved droids because of his dry wit and ultimate humor at the end of the day. And I think as well, watching him, he doesn't. Yes, he dies, but at the same time, he takes quite a few bolts to take him down. So it's not quick, it's not painless. You can see the light fading out in his eyes. And I think ultimately, it's a good picture, if you like, of death.
Yeah, for sure. That's funny because I had a tie for 5, and K2 is part of that, so I'll go with my other one. But I don't know what it is about that group. Even after watching Andor, like I love Andor and the TV show, and then of course Rogue One. But K2's death out of all that group, that's the one that like hurt the most for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
Just that fading of the eyes or whatever, or just I don't know. Like they all sacrifice. But I'm gonna go with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Ooh.
Kid, because these two were tied. I made a list of like 10 or 15, and then I kind of started putting them in order. And I wasn't sure, and I was like, "Oh, if someone says K2, then I'll just jump it." But yeah, so Obi-Wan Kenobi. I know we don't spend a ton of time with them, but trying to think back, like the first time I watched that film in Alec Guinness, and when he dies, and like Luke's reaction, and he's bummed, and you're just like, "Well, how's this kid gonna learn?" Like, I didn't know as a kid, like what's happening now. By the time I've seen this movie and I'm old enough to understand, there's already a second one. Empire's out by this point because I'm only one. So, excuse me. I just kind of remember, and then I think that kind of starts the mystery of him and all that stuff. And of course, we get that played out. We get much more of that character, and I just think that makes it more impactful because then you get the prequels, you get the Clone Wars, you get the Kenobi series, and I think that just adds to it. When they're on that Death Star, and you think about that entire life that he's lived. His loss of Satine, his loss of the Jedi Order, how he, with Maul, all the stuff that happens with his life that we've seen, in reverse kind of. But so I think that Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, we're lucky enough to see him as a Force ghost and things like that. But still, I thought it was a pretty impactful death. And I can remember being kind of legitimately upset when I was a kid about that one. So that would be my number 5, I think.
Strong start, Jim. I did not expect Kenobi at your 5.
Yeah, some of these are more recent, I think, but yeah, that one is more of a nostalgia, like kind of. It's hard though with these deaths because like some of them are, final and some of them are not,
Yeah.
Because we get that one so early in the, that's the first one we get. If you think about it, that's the first death we get in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then all that stuff we've got over the almost 50 years, how much more that character gets fleshed out. But I just think everything we learn about him makes it even a little bit more impactful. And I know everyone likes him, but he's just like the ultimate Jedi, where he just sacrificed everything for the Order and for his beliefs, and we talked about that before, with the Force being like a religion and stuff like that. Like he was all in on it, that's impactful, I think.
Interesting. What you got next, Pastor Lito?
For me, it's going to be Yoda. I probably have a tie between Yoda and Obi-Wan, but since you said Obi-Wan, I could go straight to Yoda. I think as a kid, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Yoda had that first encounter with Luke, so mischievous, playful, and who doesn't like Muppets? Like those are. I think I still, if the Muppets came out with a movie tomorrow, I'd be the first one to go see it because I want to see Kermit and Miss Piggy and all those. But when it came to Yoda, the first encounter is this very playful, he seems senile creature, and yet it was all a ploy almost to see what's Luke made out of, what type of person is Luke going to be. And Yoda reveals, hey, this he's too old, Obi-Wan, we got to move on. And it just had this moment of his story arc. To me was so beautiful because Obi-Wan doesn't get to finish the training, which, in theory, Obi-Wan have appeared as a ghost and continued to mentor him. Part of me thinks he probably could have. Maybe there was a choice in that. But having Yoda in the physical presence, I've had mentors point me to their mentors. I was at a funeral a week ago for one of my mentors, and I was getting ready to go to the funeral. I flew from Kansas to California. This guy's been a part of my life for 23 years. And he introduced me to this other guy. His name's Jeff Walling. He's my favorite preacher in the world. Jeff Walling just communicates like you would be watching a movie. He knows how to bring in the comedy. He knows how to bring in the serious tone and blends it in. He's a master Yoda. And I get a text saying, "Hey, Lito, at the funeral, you're going to be sitting with Jeff Wally," which I'm like, sweet. I get to sit with one of my Jedi masters, and I'm sitting there, and the whole time I'm just feeling nothing but love and excitement while I'm celebrating this man's life. And I think of Yoda, he's like the carrying on of the training that Luke needed. And everybody gets into the weeds a little bit with Empire when Obi-Wan says, you're going to meet the Jedi Master who trained me, and they go, "That's not Qui-Gon." But it's like, we didn't know that. And you can have more than one mentor in your life. You didn't have one person raise you. You had two parents, So I think all of that preparation to get us to Yoda, and that he is the greatest Jedi Master that you're being trained by, and you look at him and he doesn't look like anything special. Even before Attack of the Clones, when we didn't get to see him in all his amazing splendor of fighting ability. I think even as I was a kid, you assumed Jedi Master Yoda was going to be much taller and stronger. Maybe his species shrunk once they reached age 800 or something. But then he goes into this moment, all the training in Empire, he leaves it, returns, and he's giving them his final wisdom. It's not even physical training. It's just kind of this, he's telling them the final lessons he's going to learn. And then when he finally takes that last breath and disappears, I mean, to me as a kid, I was like, what?
It's
That's
rough.
how it's going to go. Like, what?
It's rough.
It is rough. And, but Luke wasn't, it was a different death, even in Luke's response. It was more accepting where, Obi-Wan gets struck down. No. And then this one, he just takes it in and he's processing. Okay, there's another Skywalker. I have a sister. What? And then, I like him returning in Last Jedi, but I think Yoda in that moment, that death, I think maybe because I was a Return of the Jedi as my ultimate film as a child. Now it's Empire, but as a child, Return of the Jedi was probably the film that I just had on repeat all the time for so many great scenes. And that scene I never fast forward through it. Even as a kid, I would embrace it, watch it, and I think, man, how does it feel to lose somebody that you care so much about? And even Luke takes it with stride, but I just remember being very impacting to me.
Yeah, it's a massive death in the Star Wars universe. Now, the next one is, I'm going to set the scene here. It's someone that's fiercely loyal. They almost uncovered the whole plot of Chancellor Palpatine at the time. Any ideas so far, gents, who could be talking about?
You're probably Maul for you.
Not quite. Not quite. I was going to put him in there, but not quite. So the person I'm speaking about is none other than Fives, the death of Fives.
Nice.
Fiercely loyal ARC trooper. Yep. He
Yep.
was uncovering, the sinister truth. He found out about the inhibitor chips.
Yep.
Purely because another clone, I think his name was Tup, they'd killed a Jedi. And he literally risked everything. It was so close, to getting the plan out there. Unfortunately, Commander Fox shot him, so one of his own pretty much. And as he lay dying, Fives even said, this is bigger than any of us, bigger than anything he could have imagined. And all he wanted to do at the end of the day was his duty. Again, we know the clones were fierce for their loyalty towards the Jedis, towards the Chancellor in the end, I guess, and even to themselves and each other. And it's one of those deaths that hit home. Again, being in the military, Jimmy could probably relate to this. At the end of the day, they were just doing the duty, and ultimately, that's what's killed him. Hurt even more again because extremely loyal to Ahsoka. It's one of those characters as well that's seen a lot throughout Clone Wars, and to last 6 seasons in Clone Wars on the front line is pretty good going as it is. And to be gunned down by one of your own for, again, something that he believed in and ultimately was correct. It's one of those deaths, especially in animation, and it just shows Dave Filoni and his team, the writing and the execution.
Beautiful.
Animation, even animation, hurting you as a viewer watching it. And that's what makes, Clone Wars the beautiful masterpiece that it is. So, the death of Fives is my next one. What you got, Jimmy?
Dang. All right. So this one's going to be a weird one because this is a character that all three of us probably like, wait, what? But over the last 3 years or so, we've gotten a bunch of information about her. It's going to be Master Yaddle. Right? And this is weird. I think this was a weird one because I actually, in my review for this thing, I was talking about how much they started fleshing her character out more. And if you read a lot of the Star Wars books, she was a big part in the Living Force with all the Jedi Knight or Jedi Masters, the Council members prior to the Phantom Menace. She's in the phases of the High Republic, and she has some big pieces into that. And then, of course, she's she's a small part in the Wayseeker book, but she just had this way. I mean, she's very similar to Yoda, where like they kind of trick people into showing them what they needed, and all these different things that she does. And I want to know more about her. And then, and I don't know if people even cared that she was just gone. Like she was in the Phantom Menace and never showed back up. So everyone's like, yeah, whatever. Like nobody, cares or whatever. And I don't think there was anything written in canon about her until Tales of the Jedi comes out. And I just think that was such a you're just talking about Dave Filoni and crew. And I don't know if Dave writes all this or he gets all the credit for it. He's the quarterback, it seems like. But to take that and that chunk of time that we don't know anything about, and this is also in accordance with like fleshing out Dooku as well, having that be the answer, like this is what happened, and she left the Order because she also saw that they weren't on the right track. So she was like coming to help Dooku, still helps Dooku. In the comic that I'm reviewing right now, she said she senses something bad, but she's like, no matter the outcome, I got to save him. And I'm like, don't do it, And I do think that I think the reason they're setting her up and bringing her into it more is that they've got plans for Grogu and they need another of that species so that he doesn't have to be like, and I've said this before, that he doesn't have to talk like Yoda, so Yoda can be unique. But the more we learn about Yaddle, and it's funny to me because this is a character 3 years ago, before Tales of the Jedi, I would have thought of. I probably would have forgot she was a Jedi.
Yeah.
And they have, like they do, slowly brought her back to the forefront of things, and she does some great things. Like in the phase, I think it's phase 2 of the High Republic. She's like she's always with the younglings. She's always with the challenging ones. Like they got this youngling that can just do all kinds of crazy, super powerful, has no clue. Like most of the kids that we teach, and her patience and all this stuff. I'm just like, man, I'd love to have her as a master. Like if I was an apprentice, like she'd be the one I want because she's patient, she's understanding, she'll trick you into stuff. I think it'd be great. And I just think the more they flesh it out, the more it kind of hurts. But I thought that the scene in it, in Tales of Jedi in the animation was really powerful. Like just watching it happen, I was just like, what? No, this isn't what? And then it happens, and you're just like, holy rip. So yeah, that one, that's my number 4, Yaddle, which I think is crazy that she's on my list.
Good choice. Good choice. What we got next?
For me, it's going to be Padme. I think, gosh, I will tell you, out of all the Star Wars films, the one that I cried through the most was Revenge of the Sith, because at the time we thought this was the last film and we're seeing the culmination of everything. And I remember in Modesto, California, sitting next to my wife at the world premiere, and Padme, when it zooms in on the little necklace that Anakin made her from episode 1, like we don't make any reference to it in episode 2, which I love. And then at the very end, she's holding that. I was done for that. Like probably hit me harder than any other scene in all of the film. At the time, I was about to propose. I think I just proposed to my wife, and no kids yet, but like on this earth, any human relationship, some of them feel a little more natural. People that are older than us, parents, them passing away, isn't unnatural. What's unnatural is when you lose your spouse or your kids. That's when it kind of hits harder. So you have Anakin, who believes his child didn't make it, and then you have Padme, who does die. To me, there was this emotional grip in that moment of what I think psychologically George Lucas did a good job making us kind of feel what Darth Vader was feeling, even though he had done this evil, killing the younglings, killing all these Jedi, trying to fight and kill his best friend Obi-Wan. And then he loses his wife, obviously choking her and her dying of sadness and all that, which, it is what it is. I think I think that whole scene, there's a lot of theories that go with that, but ultimately, I just think that scene in Naboo, and of course, because she's played a huge impact on their planet, her having that processional, like, it was beautiful, but so tragic all at the same time because people do this AI thing today, and I hate it. They post this like what Anakin and Padme would look like if their children made it to adults. It's a family photo of all them, and I'm like, oh, stop! I've seen the one with Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher and Ben Solo. Like, it's like, oh, stop it! I don't like it. Just let the story be the story. But it's one of those things because it's a tragic loss of what they had dreams of and hopes for, and then Padme is a casualty of war in the situation.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I know, like you said, surrounding it's a lot of what, but overall, it is a pretty sad story.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I did not even clock the fact that she's got that necklace either.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that little snippet thing that's a little like hourglass kind of shape.
Yeah. I didn't even think about it when you started mentioning it. Then I was like, oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
God, it hurts me even more. Thank gosh you're on the show. Right. Next one for me is another one that really pulled on my strings as a young kid. Jimmy probably been a teenager by then, but it was Return of the Jedi. I didn't see it obviously in 1983 because I wasn't born, but it is the death of an Ewok who fans came to know as Nanta. So they're running through the forest. You see a couple of explosions. Ewoks getting out of there, and we see Nanta essentially get blown up for an explosion. And then one of his companions called Romba rushes back. He's trying to wake him up, trying to get him to move, and then he sort of realizes that his companions died, and then he starts crying. Then everyone else at home starts crying. But it's a rare moment of genuine emotional weight for a species that's often used as it's not a joke, but like
yeah.
I don't think it was supposed to come across as serious as it did, but it really did humanize, the cost of war. I think at that point we didn't really see the Empire, I don't say kill or murder people, apart from Aunt Beru, obviously, and Owen. But up until that point, really, I think off the top of my head, it was only fighting the rebels. So to see an Ewok die, these poor bear-like creatures, which you did think were harmless, but evidently it mattered not. It's a powerful, powerful scene. And it reminds viewers that even though it's a fantasy world, it's still real sacrifice against ultimately the evil galactic tyranny that is. And again, imagine the children watching that in the 80s. There you go.
Like 9 or 10, and I'm like, what? He gets down and he starts shaking him. I'm like, well, come on, wake up, man! Like, wake up! You're an Ewok, and
yeah,
that was a hard one.
That's a tough one on the heartstrings. And George Lucas is out as well. He reportedly wanted to emphasize the fact that even the smallest beings can make the biggest sacrifices, and we see that in all the great films, don't we? From like Lord of the Rings, for example. Star Wars with the Ewoks, etc., etc. But yeah, so for me, I'm going for the unnamed Ewok, which is named by the fandom as Nanta.
Nice. It's a good one, Jack. Yeah, that one hit when I was a kid, man. Like, just like, why isn't he getting up?
Yeah, it's a horrific one.
Yeah. Mike's gonna be mad at me for this one because it's not higher up on my list, but I'm gonna go with Rebel Seasons 4, Episode 10, Jedi Knight, the loss and the death of Kanan Jarrus. I won't go. I mean, I'm assuming that some of you have that later on. Maybe, I don't know, but that one, because I didn't get to watch Rebels when it first came out, so I was like binging through it. And so when you're, how it is with a TV show, like you binge through, you feel like that's like part of your family or whatever. Like you feel like, these people, even though if it's animated series, you spend that much time with these characters and you kind of get attached. And not seeing it coming, there wasn't any like signs that this was going to happen. This was just, this is episode 10. This isn't even the finale of season 4 or whatever, or season 3 or season 4, it's called Jedi Knight. And they had that mission and the sacrifice that he does, kind of, and Kanan struggles through the beginning of the show. And if you've read, was it Rising Dawn, I think is called the book, like he struggles with being a Jedi and being a master and never feels like he's good enough. And then at the end, I mean, he always was good enough. Obviously, he does a great
Yeah.
job with Ezra and the crew and things like that. But his sacrifice to make sure that his wife and kid get out of there. I don't even know if he knows about Jason at that point, and we don't until the end. But yeah, that was a big one, impactful. The acting from the voice actors, Vanessa Marshall and all them, they sold that, and that was a powerful. I can't imagine being a kid and that one coming across the screen. If you're, 9, 10, 12-year-old
On
kid.
Disney Channel, I think at the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
So that's a pretty
That's a good point.
intense death. Stormtroopers die all the time off screen, and you get the Wilhelm scream and all that stuff. But this one was a main character.
Yeah.
Again, I think not seeing it coming too, man. That one that got me. So yeah, Kanan Jarrus. Sorry, mailman, that it's not number one, but I'm going to put him at number 3 for me. But I thought that was a pretty impactful death.
Yeah, it's a strong one. Like you said, it's a main character that people probably picked up on from episode 1, season 1. And like you said, I think the fact that it's unexpected, as with most of these deaths, it hurts the most, I think, when it's unexpected.
Oh, for sure.
Cool. Right, what we got at number 2 then, gentlemen?
Anakin for me. Anakin's death, and it's hard because you could refer to Revenge of the Sith as a death moment, but really I go back to Return of the Jedi when he is telling his son, tell your sister, she was right. All these moments, this beautiful redemptive moment. I think in life we all kind of want these hard conversations, whether it's with a parent, whether it's somebody we care about, maybe there was some beef or wounds or whatever, and Luke should have some big wounds, and he's not. I think, I'm going to go to this. I think Luke Skywalker demonstrates so much grace, so much love, so much hope, because he really is the key factor to I think bring Anakin back from the dark side, and watching his son get injured. He couldn't handle that, and then he kills the emperor. But you have this moment where they're just right there, and I think they've made some jokes about this. People are running by and they see Luke and he's holding Darth Vader. But the biggest mindset of stormtroopers and everybody that's running out of the Death Star, because it's going to explode, is they know that Luke and Vader and Emperor Palpatine went up in that room, and the only one coming out is Luke carrying Darth Vader. Like, oh my gosh, this guy killed Palpatine himself.
Yeah.
So I think they highlight in their own mind the mythology of who this guy was, which I think plays out in Force Awakens. All of it's true, all of this story arc here just has so much power, but it's then slowed down into this intimate moment where he's finally, let me see you with my own eyes. All of that is it just resonates in a whole different way. And, I think I've had some really good, awesome deathbed conversations with people in that moment. And it sounds silly. I know I'm bringing it back to Star Wars for me. In my career, there's moments where I'm praying with somebody on their deathbed and I'm thinking of Return of the Jedi. What's the final moments that they're going to share? And I've got to tell a funny story, because I do have one funny deathbed story. I've shared it, but I try to be very careful where I share it. There was this guy in California he went to World War II. He met his wife. She was a German and he's an American soldier. They fell in love. Her family was like, you can't marry an American soldier. His family's like, you can't marry a German. He married her and brought her back to the States. He fell in love while being stationed in Germany. Well, fast forward, he starts coming to church, and his name's Lonnie. And Lonnie was this amazing old man who, when I was a young preacher, this is probably 15 years ago, and I would preach a sermon and I'd feel like I didn't do a very good job. He'd come up, Lito, that's the best sermon you've ever preached in your life. I want to hear it again next week. And he would just encourage me the whole time. Well, then he got real ill. He thought he was given 2 months to live. He ended up living 2 extra years. Wow. So the family calls me and they say, Lito, it's getting close. And I would go to Lonnie's house, and his wife would make me German chocolate cake, and I would just sit with them for hours. So I go to the hospital, and he's barely talking. His dentures are out. Lito, Lito. And I'm like, oh, all I'm thinking about is Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader this last moment. And then he motions for the family, and his wife's name was Elsa. She goes, hey, he wants to talk to Lito. Everyone out of the room. She sends everyone out of the room, and he pulls me in real close. He says, Lito, I have to pee. I will never forget that moment, deathbed moment. So then I went to the family. They were all outside the door, and I said, hey, guys, we had some nice words. What did he say? I go, it's just going to be for Lonnie and I. But can we get the nurse to help him? He does have to use the restroom. And they took care of him. But, man, I'll never – she kept asking me that till before she passed away. What did my husband say to you? I go, it was just some encouraging words. I just didn't have the heart to tell her.
And that's the beauty of Star Wars as well, just to sort of back you up there, People struggle with difficult times, and people use things that get them back into their comfort zone, or, to make things easier. Hence why the reason you're thinking, about Star Wars, etc. People who are listening might think, what is he on about here? Star Wars and a deathbed. Well, people use stuff like that to get them through the hard times.
That's right.
So yeah, totally appreciate and see where you're coming from with that one. My number 2 is a biggie. I was thinking about putting this number 1, but there's a reason why the person at number 1 is my number 1. I'm hoping it's not the same as Jim is. So my number 2 is Leia.
That was a good one.
I got a feeling this could have been Jimmy's as well. Anyway, the death of Princess Leia was more than just the character. It was Carrie herself. They used footage from previous films, etc. They'd render some stuff. Her daughter was involved in it. And to lose not only, like I said, that character on screen, but the character off screen. And you hear all the time about people, how they looked up to her, the things that she did. She was the laugh and soul of the party at celebrations, at cons, etc. So, we we did know that she wasn't going to make it in The Rise of Skywalker due to her passing, obviously, in 2016. But again, credit to JJ and his team, the writing. It's how they did it as well that really, really did hit home. In her final moment, she's there. She's, battling with the last bit of strength and her life force to reach out to Ben through the Force. And the last thing she does mention is her son's name, which is Ben, which ultimately causes that distraction for Rey to stick it to him. Which, again, she does go and heal him. And then we do see Ben Solo emerge from Kylo Ren. And then, it hits even harder when you've got the big characters again, like R2 next to her. Chewie's reaction on return. There's so many little poignant things that really do hit home. And, at the same time, her body doesn't vanish until Ben actually does die. And it just shows that connection, that spiritual bond between her, or a mother and a son, not even her and a son, a mother and a son, the power that is. But again, going back to Carrie Fisher, it reflects what Luke did as well. And it's her legacy. She did everything in her power to ultimately become everyone's princess. And she was. So I think the biggest death in Star Wars is definitely Leia / Carrie Fisher. But for me, I'm having it at number 2.
That's a good one, Jack. None of the legacy characters made my list. I don't know if it was because I kind of expected all of them. I knew we were moving on, so I had time, and maybe it's just the unexpected side of things. But yeah, I mean, because I think we talk about Solo. I think it's more impactful when you see him again in The Rise of Skywalker. That brings a tear to my eyes when he shows up. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh my gosh! But he had to have passed before you could have that scene. But this one, you guys are not going to know who this is, but in the High Republic, there's this character, and they introduce him right before the start of Phase 3, and his name is Master Miro Lox, and he has this young Padawan, and it's mostly about his Padawan, this short story by Lydia Kang, and this guy goes out, Amadeo Azazo goes out, and he is going to see what it's like not to be a Jedi. He goes on his little adventure, and I think, some things happen that evening, and he's like, all right, I've lived that life. I kind of think of like a one-night Rumspringa for old Amadeo. So he comes back. But anyway, so then they bring this master in, and they kind of slide him in his apprentice into a few spots in the book. And then George Mann gets a hold of them, and that's never a good thing. I mean,
No.
it's good because George is an amazing writer.
Yeah.
But Tears of the Nameless, if people haven't read the High Republic, there's these creatures called the Nameless, and they basically suck the force out of Jedi, and they crumble to dust. And at this point in the reading, like you just no one's safe because you don't know any of these Jedi. Like, you know, you have Yaddle, you had Yoda, you had like Opa Rancisis, and a couple other ones that you knew was safe, but everyone else is fair game. And these authors killed them off. And you spend a ton of time and they're bonding, and it's like this, you know, it's like this relationship that you think that like Obi-Wan and Anakin probably had when they weren't fighting with each other when they were younger. But but the scene is the most eerie. There's a lot of deaths in these books. This is the most eerie. I think, Jack, I told you about that, and I actually yelled at George Mann when we had him on the show. Like, how could you do that?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
But you think he survives, and then he turns around, and half of his face is like calcified, and it's just. I was trying to find it so I could read it to you guys, but I mean, it was disturbing. I mean, I just sat there, and I mean, he's not a main character, he's not a massive character. He's, you know, introduced towards the end, but the writing, the impact it has on Amadeo, on his Padawan, and again, it brings the stakes of this story. Anyone who hasn't read the High Republic, like that's one of the best things about it. You get attached to these characters and they get wiped out, but nobody's safe. You know, it can happen to anybody, and it does a lot of the times. But just this death hit me in a weird way, like not necessarily like I was so super attached to him, but it was just so impactful in that part of the story that it was just like, whoa. And I went back and I read it again.
Yeah.
I got to yell at George for it. So that was good. That was some good therapy. But it was just, I don't know, like like I said, I tried to find that excerpt, but it's just so beautifully written, and just like the emotions that come out of, like, he's trying to talk to Amadeo, and Amadeo's like, what, you know, like, I mean, you thought they were going to get away because you were worried because they had killed a bunch of, you know, Jedi previously. Like, oh, all right, they're good. They're going to go meet up with these other two. And he just turns around and you're like, oh no. So I know it's a weird one, but that one sticks with me through the High Republic. Like I said, lots and lots of Jedi get taken out. A lot of them are painful, but for some reason, I don't know if it was the way George wrote this one, how much time we got to spend with him in this book, but when they took him out, I was just like, oof. So, spoiler alert, I guess, if anyone hasn't read it yet. My bad.
Strong.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us then to our number one. So, top one.
I'm going to go with Han Solo in The Force Awakens. You know, with his, just the idea that they were bringing back Carrie, you know, Harrison and Hamill to this role, these roles specifically. I think there was a lot of nostalgia and all that tied with it. And I don't recall there being any clue to he was only going to make it in the first one. Like, I think we all assumed, okay, these movies are going to unveil and we're going to get this, you know, Han, Luke, Leia back together. Like, that was my hope.
Yeah.
And when we don't get that, and the whole scene with Ben, like I looked over at my son. I was like, is this kid going to hurt me one day? He was little. He's now 16. But I remember just being really moved by that scene, and then Chewie scream and then shooting Ben and that whole thing. But it felt necessary once again, but it's also, I think a loving parent would sacrifice themselves for any one of their kids. They would do, even in this moment, like trying to jumpstart his humanity again. I think eventually Carrie Fisher solidified that, but obviously you saw a lot of torment that was in Ben to begin with. It's just sad that it ended in such a way. And, you know, I thought Rise of Skywalker, when you referenced it, even with Harrison coming back, you know, I always ask, like, he's not a Force ghost. Is he a memory? Is Ben talking to himself, but he's seeing his father? Like, and I don't need that explained, but that moment, that was the bookend for me. I'm not the biggest fan of the newer trilogy, but that scene from Han Solo's death to Ben Solo's redemption, those were my key favorite moments of the entire series, that newer trilogy. To me, that was the crux of it all, which, you know, brings us back to Redemption, Return of the Jedi, and brings us to Redemption, all the stories. It's just, it was it was hard, when you think
Yeah.
of Harrison Ford or Han Solo. I mean, I think I would probably cry just as much if Harrison Ford in real life passed away. I'd be like, oh man, Indiana, no, it's just he has such a connection to so many people in storytelling.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head as well, where you mentioned the fact that people went into that expecting the trio to meet up, and I think that's the biggest thing for people. You got any thoughts on that, Jimmy?
Yeah, I don't know why. I just thought, given his history of like not wanting to be in Star Wars, how he was like so negative.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was all an act with him or not. But he had been openly saying he wanted to die in Return of the Jedi, to sacrifice himself to do his role. I kind of, for some reason, I'm disappointed that we never got the trio back together. I think that was a huge missed opportunity. The way it was handled, again, that's not, we're not here to bash on the sequels, but I wasn't surprised by any of the deaths, I don't think. But I do agree with you, Lito, that bookending it with, his mother and his father sacrificing themselves to help him come back. And then that whole scene, super intense. That scene gives me chills every time I watch it. So that's a really good one.
It is. Okay, so my number one, no surprise to Jimmy, it's not going to be Mace Windu. I did think about it, but it's not going to be Mace Windu. Season 3, episode 20, Twin Sons. Jimmy knew I was going to go this way.
I knew he was going to show up. I just didn't know where.
It's my boy Darth Maul. For someone so pivotal to the series, to go out the way he did was an absolute perfection. But it's the fact that, at this point, Maul was raised as a weapon. He was pretty much discarded. He had multiple chances to let go and do other things, which we're probably going to see as well in the new series that's coming out. And ultimately, in the end, he just wanted his suffering, if you like, to mean something. He was the absolute pinnacle, I think, of Star Wars. The first guy we saw with the coolest lightsaber, if you like, in Star Wars ever. And we watch a character for, let's think about this, years-wise. Got to be 10 years, give or take, maybe more.
99?
99 he came out, and then
2017 is when that episode, March 18th, aired.
There you go. So nearly a heck of a time. We've watched his character build up, build down. He's gone through the loss of his brother, the loss of his planet. He's been on Dathomir. He's been discarded by someone he ultimately trusted. Hence, it was a Sith. He's taken over a cult and then a Mandalorian. He's done everything, but ultimately, it was this hatred for one person that drove him insane and to his death. And I thought the way that he died, one stroke, he was also tricked because he thought that Obi-Wan was going to do the exact same thing that Qui-Gon did. Perfection, absolute perfection in how he went. And for me, an absolutely amazing character, someone I absolutely adored when I first saw come on screen. But ultimately a death that didn't mean a great deal. Go on, Jimmy.
Such a tragic character, man. Because if you Jedi find him, he's probably like one of the greatest Jedi ever. He might get himself in trouble for his passion and stuff, but like he wanted to be molded, he wanted to be guided, and then he was, and he just can never break out of it. But I think, and I feel like he's kind of like, like the students we try to, as in class, you can see these kids that are just going down the wrong path or whatever, and switching schools like I have, like I'm preparing myself to try to, help more kids than I have in the past, and I'm like, man, I just need to be able to reach out. So it's a painful story to watch. And he just never learns. Like he just never learns in such a balance, definition of the light side and the dark side. I just feel like he's one of the most tragic characters in Star Wars.
Yeah, Maul had that fiercely loyal demeanor from the beginning, and I think what you guys said about had he been found by the Jedi, I've always thought it'd be fascinating. I've always wanted to, I grew up in a really rough part of Fresno. I had, friends that would sell drugs on our bus growing up as a kid. And so I have a nephew that I was very close with. He went into gangs. And then my dad got a job out of town. I'm about to start middle school. And I moved 3 hours away up in the mountains with 100 people. And I've always wondered, I thought, had I stayed in my community, would I have been involved in that lifestyle? Now, my nephew's done good. He's broken free from the gang life. He has served time. He finally had his first kid about 3 years ago at 36 or something. So like his life is looking great now, but there's a lot of life that happened there where he just was not on the right road. And I always wonder if there was one or two people that didn't appear in my life, would I have become someone else? And I think once again, Star Wars paints a picture of, families matter, relationships matter, all of these, moments in our life. Palpatine gets a hold of them and leads them to the dark side. And I think there's some interesting parallels of reality in our own life and human nature that we long to be loved and cared for, or even what studies show when a kid's, raised by a broken parent with alcoholism addiction or drug addiction, they still just want to be loved by that parent. It's sad because it may come out in different facets and way that aren't healthy, but it's just kind of a part of who we are in our nature as humans. But that death, I will tell you this, I wasn't actively watching the Rebels. We didn't have cable at the time. And I'm like, I'll just watch them all when they come out. And then when it was announced that Darth Maul in this scene and everybody was buzzing on the internet, I'm like, oh my God, this episode. I'm like trying to find it on the internet. And I only watched that episode for that scene. And I remember going, oh, well, then eventually, I'm watching on Disney Plus probably only a few years ago. And I caught up with all of Rebels and Clone Wars. I'd watch all the Clone Wars, but watching Rebels on Disney Plus, like I think it was that evening, my kids probably were already sleeping and I'm watching it by myself. And I remember that being very just riveting, just his death. And you think about his whole journey. Personally, I still want us to see more with Black Sun and Solo series with him. I wish they would do something with it. You said there's a project. I don't think I've heard. There's another project coming out with Darth Maul.
Yeah, Sith Lord.
Yeah, Sith Lord, Shadow Lord, right?
Shadow Lord.
Live action cartoon
animation. Yeah. Okay. And so it looks like it's a bad guys versus badder guys. So it's going to be the beginning of the Syndicate and maybe Crimson Dawn and things like that.
That'd be dope.
Yeah, it should be really, really good.
Right, Jimmy, what have you got for us? Number one.
I don't know if anyone's ever listened to the show, you know exactly who I'm going to say, but I don't. This show is controversial, I know, but I thought this character had Ahsoka potential, and I thought, man, we're going to get so much stuff from this character, and then she has this amazing battle. It looks like something you watched Ahsoka do on animation, and it's going to be Jackie Lon, Weapon X herself, and honestly, going into this, and a lot of my deaths are things that caught me off guard, I guess, but the potential for this young lady, having her in Star Wars, the character, and then of course we got the red shirt. As much people want to bash on the show, I 100% never thought that Yord or Jecki were in any danger. They brought in like 7 red shirt Jedi. If you get that reference, that's combining our Star Trek and Star Wars. I was like, oh yeah, like they just brought in these 5 fools. Those guys are all dying, and then somehow these guys will get out of it. And then she's like wailing on them. This amazing fight scene I probably watched. I don't even know how many times I've watched it.
Yeah.
Then she goes out with that special, like he has that special blade in there. And he just pulls that out last second. And it's like whack, whack, whack. I mean, he 3-hole punches her basically. And I'm just like, what? And then he's so cold and so callous about it. He's like, well, you brought her here, like and that's kind of like the whole thing too. When seeing Ahsoka, live action Ahsoka in the Clone Wars hit a lot harder than seeing her animated. But like you do have these kids that are playing with swords, and there's real consequences to it. I don't know what it was about this character because we don't have a ton of time with her. We do have the new book coming out on Tuesday by Tessa, but I just don't know if it's going to be as like. If some of my joy, hopefully that she'll like spark some of my joy for this character again, because it's just one that just kind of sits with me and I can't shake it. I don't know what it is about this. And I mean, we got 4 episodes with her. That's all we had.
Yeah.
She wasn't even a big part in most of them, but I just thought, man, the potential for this character was off the charts. And
I'll put this out there for a lot of the characters too that resonate with us. They're phenomenal actors. I think she, in anything I've seen her in, obviously mostly Deadpool and even her and Logan, she's an excellent actress.
Yeah, Daphne Keenan's
So
amazing.
I think she really, like, you felt that Padawan, like, coming under that, that wing of learning and growing and that enthusiasm. So her death was pretty intense, and I'm still hoping we get an Acolyte season 2. I don't care what other people think. I think most
Yeah,
people
we're the same.
want it. I think it's just, money determines everything with Disney right now. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that would be awesome. It'd be sad. I want to have it because I think the potential for season 2 is phenomenal. It'll be sad to move on without having Jackie in it because I can't. The potential with Daphne Keene and Star Wars,
huge.
Just huge loss. Crazy because I think too, like, it's got to be hard for these people to kill off these characters. I mean, look how Filoni, like, how long is Ahsoka going to last? Right? She's
Yeah,
one of my
exactly.
favorites. But, like, at some point, she has to go. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, how hard is it? Because once you do it, there's no, you can't bring Jackie back. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, she's not coming back. She's not getting put in the lake on Dathomir and being brought back. But yeah, some impactful deaths on screen and in books as well. So, she's my number one. Who knows?
Nice.
I hope I don't have to live through any more though. So I hope she stays my number one. That means I don't have to have any more intense. I guess when Ahsoka goes eventually.
Yeah, as and when. Before we wrap up, obviously it's been an episode full of death. And again, just for any listeners or viewers watching, if you do feel you need help, please reach out to anybody, friend, family, local vicar over in the UK, your pastor, whatever. There's plenty of sites, there's plenty of phone lines you can get in touch with in the UK. Wherever you're listening in the world, please do not suffer in silence or suffer alone. Again, I just want to say a massive, massive thank you to yourself, Pastor Lito, for joining me and Jimmy. Absolutely love you coming on the show. Absolutely love your views.
Can I give one final quote from Star Wars?
Of course.
Jedi Master Yoda from Revenge of the Sith. Death is a natural part of life. Rejoice for those around you who transform into the Force.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for that. Jimmy, do you want to take us out?
Sure. If you have any questions or just want your voice heard, then DM us on our socials, send us an email or voice note at exploretheforest@gmail.com. And remember to like this episode, share with your Star Wars friends and family. To follow us on all of our social media platforms, all you have to do is search Explore the Forest, all one word. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Yes, and if you've been watching the Instagram this week, you see the mailman Mike at the local baseball ground repping the merchandise. So if you want to show your support and spread the word around by image as well as he does and as well as voice, then head over to Redbubble and search Explore the Force, where you can purchase unique merchandise. And a massive thank you to everybody interacting with us on our social media pages. You keep this podcast amazing.
You have been listening or viewing Explore the Force. We have spoken. We'll see you guys next week.